Can you guys hear me like this? Input level was very low before.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So yes, what I was saying is the DOM is kind of like just an object model. It's like a tree structure for the whole of our web app or our web browser to get. So kind of like how the HTML is structured, you have something like this doc type HTML. So if you look at this doc that we have from W3 schools, this is what the DOM looks like. It kind of like just encompasses everything that you would have in your browser to get, or in form of like a tree structure, kind of like how HTML is. So you have at the top, you state the document type, then you have your HTML tags, then you have the head parts that is not going to be showing in your browser, and you have the parts that will be showing in your browser, which is this whole body tag. Now under the body, you have a whole different kind of like a whole lot of syntax or a whole lot of layouts that we could have, that we could map. So you have something like the A tag or the H1 tag, or it depends on how a website is. So if you are to check the DOM model of this website, it will have a whole number of like different breaks and different layout, what's it called, layout blocks, sort of like the div, the main, the section, all of those things. So that's what makes up the document object model. So why is this important? It is important because like for you to be able to do certain things, or for you to be able to target certain things, you have to be able to know that okay, this is kind of like the structure that you're following. That's why I'm mentioning what the DOM is. So the DOM, we have methods, and generally what methods are just action that you can perform. And I said yesterday, what a method generally is kind of like a function that you want to that you are carrying out on a specific item. So that's what a method is. And properties are just the values of something that you can set or you can change. Now, let's say we have something like this. You would probably be saying, as we move on, we'll be writing something like this. So you have the document dot get elements by ID demo, then in HTML, you want to set hello world. So what this line translates to is just saying, oh, the whole web app or the whole web page is a document on its own, right? So we are trying to say, okay, we want to get that the whole document there we're in, right? Now you see this dot get elements by ID. This here is a kind of method, is an action that you want to perform. So from what we can read here, it's pretty straightforward. We are saying we want to get an element. What an element is, from what you learned in HTML and CSS, are the blocks. So you have the div. The div is an element. Each one is an element. The link tag is an element. The section tag is an element. Every damn thing that goes into your body, even the one that goes into the head, is also an element. It's an element that contributes to the whole thing that makes the web app. So what this line here is saying is you want to get the element by a particular ID. Sometimes it's by a class, but you know what an ID is? An ID is a selector. You use it to like distinguish between features. Like, oh, let's say I have a certain layout that has an ID of demo. I'll be able to distinguish it from a certain another tag. Let's say I have two P's now. To be able to distinguish between them, I can give them IDs or classes, but ID is more specific. So we want to get the elements by ID of demo. Like you can see this whole web app now. You see there's one that has an ID of demo. So what this line here will do is we are going to be getting the element of ID of demo. That means what this here is doing, this line here is just targeting this that has the ID of demo, right? So we are targeting this particular element. That's what we are doing here. Now we have this method called .inner HTML. So what the inner HTML is just what it says. The inner HTML. You see this tag now is empty, has nothing in it. So what we are saying is we are targeting this inner HTML, like what is should be inside that tag, and we are setting it to hello world. You see what this is now. They said it's equal to hello world. So this is kind of like the approach that will be taken to what's it called, to build on apps. Like probably when you want to set it certain interactivities at different points in time, we'll be using these methods to do such things. So one of the proper methods that we have is this get elements by ID. And literally what it is it gets an element, a particular element that we have set an ID on, and you get that element. So give me a second. I have to do something. So this is what the get element by ID is all about. Then the inner HTML, it allows you to get the content of an element and set it. So you can see the easiest way to get the content of an element is by the inner HTML property. So as we move on, as we progress, we'll see stuff like this come up a lot too, and we'll be using it. So the inner HTML just gets like what should be inside an element. So moving on now, okay. So we have the document, which is the objects that represent your web page. So there are different kinds of document actually. So just the elements that make up and what a web page is basically the documents, is the model or the object model of the web page. So we can get the element by ID, by tag name, and also I mentioned that we can do it by class name. A class name is just the class that you give a particular element. Let's say in my browser now I have something with a certain class. Let's say this H1, I give it a class of, let me make it a class of H1, right? So if I want to target this in my JavaScript, probably I want to change what is in here. I'll just do documents.get get elements by class name. You get this class name here, which is this class that we have here, and I'll state this class that we have here, and I'll be able to do whatever I want to do on that particular element, which is this H1 here. So hopefully we can all hear me. Are you following, please, or I'm moving too fast?
We are following.
Okay, cool. So as we move on, we are going to be writing a whole lot of things. So you can see here it says changing HTML elements. Now I mentioned it like when I was explaining the documents or get elements by ID part, that we could set different properties. Let's say I want to give a certain tag, like something inside of it. I could use this dot inner HTML attribute to change the content that's inside of that element. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, I'll create a new file here called dom.js, right? So in this dom, let's say I want to target the H1 that we have, document get elements. So all of these things you really don't need to cram them, honestly, because as you go on, like with practice, it becomes something that sticks. Even if you don't remember, you can always just refer to a doc, probably the W3 schools doc or the MDNJ and the MDN docs. That are very easy. You'll be able to get, okay, I need to get an element by ID. You'll be able to do those things like without having to cram them. It's not good to cram all of these things because there are a lot of things that you will need to cram. So get elements by ID, or in our case by class name, right? Then I have H1. Since H1 is what I named this class here, it's not being misconstrued. I can name it anything. Let's say this has a class of text now. So I'll just come here, get elements by class name. Instead of this H1 here, I'll write text. Now, if I want to set the inner HTML value, what the inner HTML does is, this part here, this HTML tag, we have what is inside. What is inside is what we refer to as the inner HTML. So this part here, if I wanted to change it, I could use this dot inner HTML tag. You see my editor, it suggests this for me. So you really don't have to cram them. Once you just have the basic idea of what you want to do, you'll be able to do them easily. So dot inner HTML, then you set it equal to whatever value you want to set it to. Now let's say in my case, I just want to set it to my name now. Now, what you always have to remember is you might end up doing like probably writing a little JavaScript code and you go to your browser and see that it's not working. You must always check if your JS file is linked to your HTML file. So we have to link this tom.js. So if I launch this now, Alt L Alt O. So let's just wait for this to load up. Now you see that it does not do anything yet, and we also reload it does not do anything. That's because we had a previous value on there, and the way JavaScript it works is there must not be a previous value inside of this text class name. So I have to remove this, right? It should load up. Let's see. Let's see. So let's make this an ID actually. Instead of being a class, let's make it an ID of text. That's very funny. Okay. So what we have in the browser here is still seeing it as let's see. Give me a minute. I want to check what the head is and the body. Okay. It's not displaying anything. That's very fun. It does not matter. Let me try to reload this from my text itself. Control S. Give me a minute first. Let's try to open this up from the file. That is very, very funny.
Hello, sir. I thought you were talking of using the return the other time.
No. This works differently. Like if you want to use that has to do the return statement has to do like with main JavaScript code. You get I can see the issue. It's get I was writing get elements by ID when in fact it's actually get element with a single S. So I think if you load up now, we should be able to see what that value is. It's still not loading. Let's see. The ID of text dot my HTML. I'm setting that. Let me try it in here and see if probably I'm writing wrong. Okay. This is serious. F12. Wow, I don't know what is going on, honestly.
What if you use the quotation mark instead of single?
I don't think it affects because like that's let's try that actually. It's like writing a string with double quotation marks and single quotation mark. It doesn't really affect it. It's you have to see. Still not printing it out. 3 minutes. Okay. The script has to be in the body tag.
No, sir, your ID is still with single quotation.
No, I changed it to double. Can you see this? Can you see it? I changed it to double.
That H1 ID equal to text.
H1 ID. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. This is just a way of setting a string, so it does not matter what I put there.
Okay. Okay.
And that inner HTML, is it supposed to be in capital letter true?
Yes, it is. Let's check the docs. Yes, it's dot inner HTML. You can see the dot inner HTML property. Let me check MDS for final
What
out.
if the script after the HTML closing tag? I think I've had a problem like that, and when I tried that, it worked.
I should put this script afterwards.
After the HTML closing tag.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm just suggesting, I'm not sure it will work, but I've had an issue like that, and I thought that was my problem.
Okay. I think that is it's working now, and that is very helpful. Yes. So I guess what it does is it actually has to like read all of this first. You know how the whole browser works is it's read it from top to bottom, right? So if you are setting this up top before it comes to this H1 part, then it would not read this value, this script tag you get. So we have to set it after the body. I said it's not outside of the HTML tag, so you guys don't make a mistake. It's still inside the HTML tag, but it has to be after the body tag. So you can see here now that we have the body here and we have the script tag itself here. So you have to set it after the body tag to be able to see what your value is. Well, let me see something actually.
Okay, but I also used to put it after the HTML closing tag, and it used to work fine. No? So I don't know.
Okay, let's try that. I don't know. I guess it still works, and I don't know why that is, but I don't think it should work. Probably because the HTML, the JS file is a very, it's like a single, it is independent of the HTML file, but it always has to read the whole document. Then that's why this is working. Should get. But let's do this. Let's just take it out like we did before. So we have an SRC equals the JS. So I guess it still works fine. I'm just close this and reload this from my live server so I don't have to reload everything. Okay, so there we have it. So we can set this. So I just I referred it back to this dom.js file that we have. So you can set the values of the HTML file from there. So I have to change this to probably what the .inner HTML does. So we actually have other properties too. Now let's say this is okay. So this is what I wanted to mention. So we actually have other properties that we can pass on to each element. So we have this attribute. We have this attribute which changes the attribute value of an HTML element. we have the style property. We can actually change the style. So let's say we want to change the style of this text file that I have now. Text is just an H1. And we already have the style to the color as well. If you want to still set the style, we can actually change that to, let's say you want to give it a color of yellow or red. So all you have to do is just get elements by ID of text. But instead of setting the HTML file, we're going to do dot style dot property. Right. Then you set it to the style that you want. Okay. So this dot style dot property. The property there is it will be the style that you want to change. There are different properties. You have the font size, you have the font weight and everything like that. So if you want to change those, you would put it after the style. So let's say you wanted to change the color, you say dot style dot color, then you change it. And let's say you wanted to change probably the font size or the font family. So you see the font size now, it is written at font size like capital S with this is called the camel case. Normally if we wanted to write this in our CSS file, we write font dash size. But if you want to write it in a JS form, you write it as font, then capital S, then size should get. So if I wanted to change this, I can say this is like 20 or let's say 46 pixels. And you go to our browser and check, we have that it will change with respect to the font size. So let's make this 80 and so. So you see it changes with respect to the values that you have in your browser here. So that's about the document object model. So you can there's also this method called the set attributes, which we are going to be talking about. So we can also create an element. What creating an element is let's say when you perform a certain action, you want to show a certain text, right? Now, what that does is you can just do document dot create element. Then you pass in the elements that you want to create. Then let's say you wanted to create like an A tag or probably an H5 tag. Now you write H5 in here. Then let's say you want to set the inner HTML, you can also do the dot inner HTML. Then you set the value. So let's say I want to set it to TPD, for example. TPD. So when we check our browser now, we have let's see. Okay. Let's make this a key tag. So that should actually appear here. So that because that's what the create elements does. What the create elements does is it will create another item to get like another element. So which one is an element. What the create element will do is it will create another element like that you state in here. So in this place, I stated that you should create an element called the P. So it will create the P tag, and we're setting the H and the inner HTML value to this DPD that we have here. But I don't know why it's not showing up, but that's what it will do normally. So when we start using these, I think it will get much easier. But I think we should probably review the assignments that I gave yesterday, which was to create the functions that we had before using the before each statement. I couldn't record the video yesterday because I was caught up and I was busy. So I'll just try to make an explanation and do the rest so we can move on to what today's main topic would be.
So please, sorry, let me see the last one you did. That dot inner HTML H5.
Okay, this is it.
Okay, I've seen it. I wanted to write.
Okay. So what we have to do, let's see, the assignment. We have the string checker that was written in the for loop form. So and I changed that to the for each form that we had yesterday. So for the for each, should I really explain this or this is clear? I should just move on to writing the other ones.
Please re-explain.
Okay. Now, what I did here was I created a function called the string function, right? And I'm passing it an argument. So in that whole, in the function itself, in the function body, I wrote the argument dot for each. You know, the arguments that I want to pass into this function is an array. That's why I'm able to write this here and say to call the for each function on it, right? So I'm passing in an array. Once it comes here, it will be evaluated to this point that we have here, right? So since this is an array, we can also call the for each function on it. So I call that method. That method is actually a method. So I call the method on the array, right? So and when you write the for each statement, you always have to write a callback function, like I explained yesterday. So what the callback function is just generally a function that we write inside of another function that does something. Okay, so and how we do that is we write the normal brackets this way. Let me just write it for context sake. So you write the normal brackets this way, then you have the equal to sign and also the greater than sign that follows each other. Then you write your curly braces this way. Then you can write whatever you want inside of this function. So that's literally what I did here. So I wrote that curly braces, which is this one here. Then the equal to sign and the arrow sign. So in the brackets, what the first question is to check if the type of value that I'm getting from the array is actually a string. So that's all I did. I just copied that code and said if type of, then you see that I have AR here. I was mentioned yesterday that when you want to write a callback function, what the argument of that callback function is just like the values that is contained in the array. So the values that is contained in the array is what is going to be here. So we are calling we are writing an if statement to check if the type of that value is a string, right? So if it is a string, we want to push that value to this loops array. And from the top here, you can see that our loops array is empty. So if this is true, then we want to, if the type of the array, if the type of value that I get in the string, we want to push that value to the array that we have here. So when I call the function here, which is just the normal way of calling the function, string, then into brackets ARR, then that works. Let me link this to my HTML files. So. Let's see, where should it be? The console, right? Now you can see it's online. So I'm logging the loops array on line 80 here. So if you check the console and check for line 80, we have this to be true. So the same thing applies, that the way you write the for loop is kind of like the way you write the for each loop, the for each method too, but it's just a little difference. It's the complexity that we have in the for loop is removed from the for each statement, so it makes it easier to write. So I'm going to write down that one, this one that had the that we are squaring the numbers that we are passing in. So to write that, you need to write a function that addresses that. So for that, you can just write the function square. Then this is also going to take an argument, which is to be an array, right? So I'm going to write the function body. So I'm writing the function body, right? So we are going to pass in an argument to this function. What the argument is going to be an array. Then since the arguments that are passing in here is going to be nums, so I can just title the argument as nums, right? So what the this function will be doing, it is going to be checking for the values inside of the nums array, and it's going to be squaring them. So to write that, we just do a nums dot for each statement this way. Then we write this bracket. So inside the brackets we have to write a callback function. So we write that now by writing the normal brackets, then the equal to sign and the greater than sign together. Then you write the curly braces, and that's all. So what do you want to do? What you want to do is for every item that is inside of this nums array, we want to multiply, we want to square them, right? And like for each statement that you write, you always have to pass an argument to the callback function that you wrote. So we have this nums dot for each. We have to write this as a number. This has to be like if you don't pass in an argument, you won't be able to perform any function or anything inside of this function that we're writing. So let's pass in the argument. We can name it n or anything. So what we want to do is let's just console.log so that we would see for the console.log n to z n to the power of 2, right? Now, so when we check our console now, we will not see anything because we are not calling the function yet. So if I want to call the function, I have to write square please. I would strongly suggest that if you are not talking,
Are you doing
Okay,
it on the same page with?
sorry, what?
Hello, sir. I wanted to ask you something. Are you doing it on the same page with the other loop method that we did?
Yes, I'm doing it on the same page. I'm just continuing that file.
Okay, so the first one is on this same JS code, this same JS file. Hello, sir.
What we wrote yesterday, the for loop statements, right? I'm changing it to a for each statement here. Do you get?
Yes, because I did my own together. They told me that function has already been declared, so I have to change the
You just
name
change
from
the name. Yes, yes, you have
yes,
to.
the name.
Yeah, so it's just the name because if you have a function that you have written before and you named it something, you have to like the name must always be different so you don't have such conflict. You get? Okay. Yeah. So the square is going to take in an argument, and the arguments that are passing in is this nums array, right? So it will be 2. I mean, it will be the nums array that will be passing in. So when we check our console now, we have something like, oh, let me just put this at line 80 of, so it's on line 85 now. So it's going to be the last thing that is shown. So we have 4, 9, 16, 25, and 36. See that I displayed this one after the other, and the reason for that is because it's evaluating the numbers one after the other. It's evaluating the arrays one after each other. So let's say I was to push it to an array now. What I will just write instead of this console.log, I'll just write the array that I want to push it to, which is loops dot push, then this value here. So if we have to check our console now, we have so we'd have line 84 is what loops. Let's put this in brackets and see. So what you should do is actually you should add this you should add this value that we have here to the array. Oh, okay, I can see now. I'm not calling the square function, that's why. So I have to call the square function. So square nums. Now you can see now that it adds that value to So the loops array. So we had bolu, Oreo, and peace before. Now we have the square of the numbers that we are trying to look for. We have them here. Now let's see. The last question was okay to the age calculator, right? So for that one, we can just do the simple one. So we can do function age to be equals so we are also going to pass in an argument which is going to be this year of birth array. So we're going to pass in year of birth. Why will be so we go to year of birth dot for each. Then write the function that has y. And what we want to do is we want to loops dot push then 2022 minus y. Now what we are doing now is we are calculating the year of birth is the array that we are passing in, right? So what we want to do is we just want to evaluate and push the value of 2022 minus the year that we are on into this loops array. If you check our console now, this will not work. And why is that? It's because we've not called this age function. So for anything to happen, you always have to call the function that you have written for it to work. So you do age, then you pass in the year of birth array like this. And when we check our function, you see that it is the one that it is put in the front. And why is that? It's because of the order by which our functions was called. Now you can see that this age function is the one that was called first, followed by this string function, followed by the square function. So the ages 21, 22, 32, and 124. Then the string function that checks for the string, this one here, and also the square function. So if I was to put this at the back now, I put it at the last line. So we would have the age, the year, the age, and the age function evaluated last. So we have that here. So we have 21, 22, 32, and 124 at the end. So that's all about the writing everything to the for each statement. Did I add anything to? I don't think I added anything. Okay, that's what I want to check now. What was it again, please? If anybody could remind me what the question was. Okay, I've seen it. So what that is literally is just an age calculator of sorts. No, it's a temperature. It prints out the temperature, right? So, so what we have to do there is we have to create a function called the print forecast function. So I can say function print forecast, right? Then in that function, it takes in an array as an argument. So let's name that ARR. We have the ARR array before we have. So let's just name it the array function, right? Now let's name it forecast actually. So let me come up here and define the forecast array. So I say const forecast equals then the test data that we had. The first one was 17, 21, and what? 23. No, we have that now. So what the print forecast does is, let's see from the question, said it logs a string like the above to the console. So it will log the string that says 17 degrees C in 1 day, 21 degrees C. Okay. So we want to log, then we have something of this sort. Now, what we can do, I mentioned that in this template string that we have, we can write a JavaScript expression or anything or an evaluation as long as you have this curly braces and the dollar sign. So that's what we're going to do in there. So we write forecast dot for each, right? So in that you have a callback function. or we can just make this. Okay, let's write it this way actually. So focus dot for each. So this is going to be FC FC. Don't actually need this. Let's remove this. Now we have this focus dot for each, and what we want to do for each of the statements is we want to log to the console what that value is, right? So for that we're going to need the template string here. So I'll just do FC. Then just the degrees is how do you write degrees? I don't think there's a symbol for that on the keyboard. But let's just read 17 C's. So what this is let me just explain. So on the for each statement, right, what you want to do is we are creating a function that is just going to be logging something. And what is going to log is FC. Let me make this FC plus, right? So it's going to be logging FC, and what FC will be is just the value that is inside of this forecast array, which is going to be 17, 21, and 23. Now I'm doing 17, 21, and 23, right? That's what this will be. So it will be 17 C's in. Now you now have this part here that I wrote index of, and what an index of is just a JavaScript method that can tell you what the index of a value is. So the index of FC, the way a JavaScript array counts is going to count from 0, right? And you know that you want to the normal thing was to print out 17 degrees C in 1 day, then it's going to do in 2 days, then 3 days that way. Use that with your mic on. If you're not speaking, you should know that your mic always has to be off. Serious. So what we are doing here is to just get the index of then FC. We're just getting the index of FC, which is this forecast here, then plus 1 days. So let's print that out and see what it should give us. Yeah, we are calling the function the print forecast, and what we want to do is we put this forecast array as the argument. So do forecast. So we said index of is not defined. Index of is actually a function from JavaScript. Fine with telling me not defined. One. Okay. Now you can see that it prints out the values which you have 17 C's and 21, 21 C's and 28 C's. But everything says 3 days because I'm using the forecast of the length, which is the length of this array. Then I'm taking I'm taking that length of the array, I'm putting it there. What I want us to do is to get what's it called? To get to write it from 0, 1, 2, and 3 like that. So it has to go from 1 to 3 days, depending on the length of the array. If the array is 5, it has to go then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So let's see how we can do that. Mm. So all we can do actually index. Come on, I want to check something. Index. Let's just check something. Let's see how to check array index. Okay, I think that's what I'm doing wrong. So it is actually something like this. This is index of, then it has to be in brackets like this. And I have to do what I'm checking the index of there. We're still saying index of not defined. Let's see. Index of then of 0 and 88. That's very funny.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I can
Hello,
hear.
sir.
Yeah, I can hear. I can
Don't you
hear.
use index.length the way you use forecast dot sorry,
No.
sorry, the way you use forecast.length, forecast.index.
I don't think it works that way, but let me see. Okay. Oh, okay. The way it works, I think from what I can see here, the way it works is if you want to call the index, you call the array that you're trying to check the index of, then you write the value of the index that you're writing. That's why it was wrong, all this one. So let's do, if you want to check the index of something, you have to do it like forecast like this, then dot index of the value that you're checking in forecast, the index of 17 now. So if you check index of 17 now, like 91, this one, just need to get rid of this one. So you can see now, like index of line 91, this line 88 here is 0. It's because we are checking for index of 17, and you know the index starts from 0. So that's what we have to do. Let's just write this. So forecast it's index of, then I have to do FC plus 1. Now you can see now that it has 17 6 in 1 day, then 21 6 in 2 days, then 23 6 in 3 days. So how that was achieved was, for you to be able to check the index of something, you have to call this method on the array that you are checking on. The way I was doing it before, I was just calling index of, and it cannot work that way. So if you want to check the index of a certain value, you have to call it on the array. So focus is the array. I'm calling the index of that focus on this array, right? Now I'm checking the index of what FC is. You know how before each works is it will get each value for each value on the array. So it will first check for 17. So it will check for the value of 17, and the index of 17 is 0, right? The index of 17 is 0, but we cannot start counting from 0 days. Do you get? So that's why I added this plus 1 at the back. So to be able to add 1 to anything that we have that we're getting from this index. So when it checks for 21, 21, the index will fall to 1, right? So it will add the 1 to it, and we have 22 days, and we have in 2 days. Then for the next one, this last one here, it will have 23. So this would be 2, and to add 1 to it, so it will be in 3 days. So hopefully we got how this is this way.
So please just show it again.
Okay. Now, what I was saying is, if you want to, the way you write an index of statement, I was writing it wrong. Write focus, then dot index of. Now, the way you write the index of, like the way you get the index of a certain value, is you're going to call that this index of method, this one that we have here, right, on the array that you're trying to check. Now, I'm calling forecast on index of. Now, let's say I want to check the index of 17, right? See, if I want to check the index of 17, so let me console.log this. And now this is line 95, right? You can see from here it's line 95. So let's go to my console. Line 95. So this is line 95 here, and it says 0, right? So, and I cannot start printing out this here from 0. I cannot start from 0. Like if you want to predict this thing, we cannot have 0 days. We can only have 1 day, right? So that's what I am doing. So instead of just checking the values of, like, writing 17 and all, what the for each will do is it will get each value that is in that array, right? So the first evaluation FC here will be 17. So what focus your index of is going to check the value of 17, right? And that would be 0. But since I have to start from 1, that's why I added this plus 1 at the back. So this will be 0, then plus 1. What it will print out is now 1 days. That's why I have this, right? Now for the second one, the index of 21. 21 is the second value in that array. The index of 21 is 1. So you can see it here on line 95. The index of 21 is 1. But if you want to count it normally, this should be 1 and 2. So that's why I'm adding this 1 at the back. So that anything that we get from the index, we're just going to be adding 1, and it will make sense. Do you get why I did that now? Anybody, do we get why I did that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, this part.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Hey, sorry, I actually forgot. Are you done?
Yeah. Do we need to add a print focus?
Sorry, what?
Do we need to add that print focus?
Yes, for any function to work, you actually have to call it. So that's why this one is here on line 98. If you write this function like this and it actually works, you won't know that it works until you call the function. So when you call the function and it does what you want it to do, and that's when you know that it works. So for any function that you write, you must always call it to know that the function works. So that's why this print focus is here. Any question? So I'm guessing not. So I want us to be able to let's see. Okay. Okay, okay. So I think we should move on to like writing the probably the projects that we're going to build, right? We should go on to starting that and writing the code for that HTML file. So we add the CSS to it. So I have a couple of things that would probably like be basic projects that we could do with JavaScript, right? So we can start with I would just tell you guys so you guys can choose which one we should start with. So we have a weather app. So it will be able, we'll be able to get data from a particular website and be able to show it on our own website using JavaScript. But we are going to be touching on advanced concepts like how to get data from a particular API or a particular server, just for simplicity sake. So we can have we will probably build the calculator app too. So just the simple ones, and probably like a guess my number app too that you can be able to guess numbers and see what will happen. So which one do you guys think we should do? I think the calculator one is like the basic one and it's the easiest one so that we can if we start that we'll be able to see okay this is what is happening.
Are we just doing one project?
No, I'm listing out the list of projects that we do.
Okay, those are the list of projects that we'll do. Oh, I thought you wanted us to choose.
Yeah, like I want to choose the one that I'm going to start with first. But I think
Oh, okay, yeah, the
Yeah.
simpler one, so that we
Yeah,
can
the
build
calculator.
on the concept.
Okay, yes, the calculator. So I have to create the CSS file actually. This index that we have here. How do you write this? I think it's like this, right? Let's see this type of CSS. This is how you get you write it. If you write since I'm doing this one now, I'm use React, I don't use CSS files like this anymore.
No, it's link.
Okay.
Let me put it in the chat.
Okay. We don't use this anymore. Okay. Does he have a closing tag or it does not? At least does he have so the body I'm probably quit this for now. And says we want okay items to center.
Sorry, Mr. Blackis, can you send that code? You know, you just sent to us now.
Which one? Do you mean
The for
what?
each, the one for
Okay,
the for each, the one for
okay,
like 3 of them.
okay. I'm going to that. So I'll send it to the group now.
For me, I still need that. I didn't screenshot it well. It didn't show from the beginning.
Sorry, what?
The screenshot I didn't show from the start. I want to.
Okay, okay. This is the beginning. Documents. Okay, so I sent the file to the group now. So for the okay, the
Thank
file.
you.
Yeah, no problem. So the file, we're going to be building out a calculator, I guess. So you have to give, let's name this class. Let's name this class on calculator. Right. You guys know how to use calc, right? Like how to use what I'm writing now.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to explain to you. 50, yeah, probably like a 20 RAM. Let's see what's the actual.
Well, we've actually done the test and it.
Sorry, what?
Test and part of the calculation. We've done it before.
Like this CLC. Victor, I cannot hear you. Can you probably you should change your speaker or something, or you should increase the volume. I cannot hear you at all. Oh, Victor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can now.
So I was saying that we've done the CSS and HTML part before.
Yeah, I get you. No, like the reason why I'm writing this out, probably I would write the code to the CSS style overnight, or so we won't be writing it and wasting time like this. It's because like we want to start a new project, right? And we want to be able to like print something out and see it in our console. Do you get? So that's why I'm actually doing this.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just right. This right. Which one has right? It says addition calculator. Right. Let's wait for this to go out.
Are we going to do this with you?
Like, are you going to be writing out the code, like the CSS code with you?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you suggest to do it? Like, what I want to do here is just like write something really, really basic, yes, and be able to like see how some things work.
Oh, okay. Or you can just copy the code for us, because I think it's important we follow, especially during the JS part.
Exactly. So that's what like I'll probably be dropping the code for you guys. So I'll just follow along.
Okay.
So let's have in here, probably have something like another div, another one, right? So in this div, we want to have the p tag, and also a small button. So the class design and button that says okay. That's right. Go on. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's start with button. Let's import. Right, so yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So you just have this kind of like what's it called? This a div. I think it's a div, right? Okay. This is actually. So just want to make like a dummy calculator which does like add like basic addition stuff, right? So we want to be able to add two numbers and add them together and get a result from that. So what we can do is create an input type here. So I have this div here. Let me just in the other div here. Let's say we have an input type post text, right? How do I do that? Okay. I think I should just explain the basic DOM concept and we should just use this out. We should use this later. So let me just try to explain the basic DOM concept actually. So um um let me just use this one. Now, so basically what the DOM is, yes, I've explained it to be like the model for any website, right? You have different elements and different things that compromise or that consist that make up the web browser. So what the DOM is just like the blocks, and we want to be able to target those blocks with our JavaScript file to be able to manipulate things and be able to create things and create interactivity in our files. So what we can do, let's check this for example. So we have different kinds of method that we can actually call on each of our DOM objects. And what I mean by DOM objects are just these elements that we have here. So we can see this one that we're saying changing the value of an attribute, right? So if you want to see, okay, let's check this. So we have this one that says the image has an ID of image and it has an SRC folder of the smiley.gif, right? So they are setting the width and the height to be this. Now, from inside of our JavaScript file, in this case, the script tag, we can actually do this by we can change an attribute of a particular object. You know, in this case now we have the source to be a smiley GIF you get. So let's say we want to change the value of this. We want to change the value of this based off of something like we want to change what this image would be based off of an event. Let's say I want to click a button and I want to change the value of an item. So I can actually do that in JavaScript by saying, okay, document to get ID by get elements by ID of image from .src. Then I do this whole change here. So I'm targeting the SRC attribute because this is an attribute. You know what attributes are is we're just changing we're changing attributes are like properties that we pass on to an HTML tag. Like this width now is an attribute, this source file is also an attribute. So we can change different attributes from you can change different attributes of a particular HTML syntax or a tag. You can change the attribute of you can change the value of the attribute. Now in this case, it has a smiley.gif image before. I want to be able to change that image to the landscape.jpg. You won't be able to see it or because like it's already changed, it's changed here already. But it should start off as a smiley.gif file and it changes to this landscape file that you can see here. So that's basically how I don't know how I can run this. Because honestly, I must say I have not structured how I would do this dumb part. Does anyone want to talk?
I think you can comment it out and see the change, and then you uncomment it to see the change after.
Okay, and Ezra, please. That's why I wanted to speak before.
Yes, please. I have two questions.
Okay.
First question is, what is the use of this DOM? For example, if I built a project, right? I'm the one that built both the HTML, designed the CSS, and also the JavaScript. Why would I want to? Why would I have to use this DOM to affect any change when I can just change it directly from the HTML file itself? So that's one question. The second question is for the DOM. Can you please go back to the W3 schools? The
Okay.
write yourself. How to write?
This one.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So if we wanted to effect changes like say the width and then the height, can we effect two changes in one script file, or do we have to write multiple script files for the different changes that we want to implement?
Okay. So that your are those your questions?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So what I get your question about why can't we just change our HTML and CSS file, right? Now you won't be able to do that, and why is that? Because let's say you have a web browser that is already on the web, right? I want to like okay, let's say a user clicks on something now. I want to be able to do a particular thing. Like what we have, like what you guys have done is just basic HTML and CSS interactivity, like what HTML and CSS can do. Let's say I want to click on the button. I want something to happen when I click on that button. I want 2 + 2 to add when I click on the button. Then that's when we'll be using the JavaScript part. And what the DOM is not anything special. It's actually what you've been writing before. The DOM basically is just your HTML and CSS file, right? It's the layout. It's the layout of everything that you've been doing before. So let's say, but the usefulness just comes in when you're trying to like link your JavaScript part to the HTML side. JavaScript and HTML, like they are two separate things, right? So I want to be able to like link, okay, this is my DOM, right? I want to be able to target something that is specific. The DOM is basically just the layouts that you have, the div, the everything that you have in your normal HTML file. It's nothing different, right? But when you start, you want to start effecting changes with your JavaScript. Let's say you want to change a particular image when somebody clicks on the button, or you want to do, there are certain. Let me just go to a random website and see and tell you what I mean. Okay, probably this one. Now, let's say I have this page here now, this whole page now. Yes, I want to click on this buy from this seller. Let's say I want to click on buy. You see what it does now is it pops out this modal. You cannot do this with HTML and CSS alone because HTML and CSS is just for dummy things. You can just like it's just for you to be able to create this layout. What the DOM is, it allows you to map your JS files and functions to your HTML so that when you do certain things or when you make certain actions, some effects happen. So let's say when I click on the button, it brings out this mode that I have to sign in. Then if I click on this one now, it changes everything that is on here to what is here. So what we are doing here is we are affecting everything with JavaScript Qt. So all of this will not happen if you are using your HTML and CSS file alone. And regardless, if your HTML and CSS is on the web server, like it's on the web already, you are not a developer that just have to sit down and say, okay, somebody has clicked this thing now, so I have to quickly go and change it. You have to quickly write the styles for that. No. So that's what the JavaScript is for, is to effect the changes that you've so you just set like some predefined changes that you want for each interactivity. Let's say I want for this create an account now. I want it to link me to another tag. You want to create a validation like this, like okay, enter your valid email address. You do all of that with JavaScript, triggers. And that's what the DOM is for. The DOM is for you to just map out what you need to do on the HTML side of things and you map it out to your JavaScript. So, okay, I want to perform a certain action whenever a button is clicked. You map that DOM element to your button and to your JavaScript, and you'll be able to perform different sort of interactivities. Hopefully, I answered your first question.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, what was the second question again?
The second question was to effect on that W3 code example.
Okay.
The change that they made, the first one was
Oh, separate scripts. Okay.
yes.
Yeah, so what it is here, it's because like what W3 schools will do is they want to be able to like for you to see, okay, this is what you are doing for any change to happen. You don't write separate different you don't write different script files for different things. Like, I want to write the script again, and I'll say this is just the script for changing the ID of image and stuff like that. Then I come down to write on that script that says, okay, this one is for doing a certain thing. No, you won't do that. Normally, what we will do is we create an external JS file. So it's kind of like CSS, yes. CSS, you can style it on your HTML page and write all of the styles if what you're writing is not too much, right? You can write the styles in your HTML page. But you don't want to do that because your styles can get like it can be a lot. Like you can have a lot of things that you want to do, like you want to style. So you have to that's when you go ahead to create an external JavaScript and an external CSS file. So that excuse me, sorry. So that will address it should address each style that we want to make, and we will link that to our HTML file so that we have the HTML mainly and the JavaScript and the CSS mainly. So the same thing happens with this with JavaScript too. So we can actually write everything that we need inside a single script. Let's say I want to target like 4 or 5 elements now for starters. I want to write it and I want to target their IDs and do specific things with their IDs, right? I can write that in my script tag. But that is not going to be effective when I have like a whole lot of things that I want to, a whole lot of changes that I want to effect. Let's say I have like 2,000 or let's say like 100 things I want to effect. I have 100 buttons I want to do some like different things with on each click you get. Now you want to write an external JavaScript file. I would link to that will link to your HTML file. So you don't have to create like separate script tags. You have that you would create a new like a JS file that will contain all of the JavaScript code that we would need, and then you just link it to HTML as we would do for the CSS too. Hopefully we got that. Yes, right. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So okay, let me check for a random image in my folder so you'll be able to see how that works. Okay, so let me just put this here. Right, I have this gift.png and I have this merchant.png. Now, let's say I have an image tag, right? So I have an SRC of gift.png, right? I want to set the width to be like 300 pixels. The height, don't even set the height, but just for 300 pixels, right? Now in my, let's just write this. So let me link this to my dom.js, right? And my dom.js. So let's say I want to change what this attribute is from gift.png to merchant.png. Let's just check if this shows something. Actually. So we have this whole, let me make this 100. So let's say I have this image now, right? And I want to change it in my DOM. Probably on the click or something, I want my image to change. I need to be checking what event listeners are. So let me just give a quick overview of what event listener is. You know, when you go to a website and you do different kind of things, when you hover on something and something happens.
Not too clear.
Okay, is it now?
It's better.
Is it clear? Okay. So on different browsers you can have different effects. Let's say you have, let's see if this. So look at this now. Look at the interaction that we have here. So let's say on a web, this is my portfolio by the way. So let's say on a web browser you have different interactions that you want to happen. Now you can see that if I hover on this now, something changes, right? The color changes and there's a little transition effect that happens, right? So you want to have different kind of things. When you click on the button, you want to be able to like see a certain effect. So the event listener, what an event listener is just it checks for those little interactions that you make. Probably I click on this, or I click on this, or I click on this. Those little interactions, I hover on something, yeah, I drag something, or I'm scrolling on something. Those little those are what we call event listeners. We're going to be talking more on them as we progress in the course of this class actually. So what was I even saying? So let's say this file that we have here, we want to be able to like change it on clicking this button, right? We want to be able to change this whole image. So what the attribute part does, this attribute is say we are getting it by the elements by ID of image, right? I'm changing the SRC attributes to this landscape.jpg. Now I'm going to write that out without having to do anything. I'll show you what I mean in a minute actually. So let's say Control C this and put this here, Control V, right? So I have to set an ID of image for this one. ID equals image. Now we don't have this landscape here. All I have is merchant, I think. Merchant. There is not .png and is .png, right? Now let me comment this out for now. You can see that like by default what our image here is this gifts.png image. And I also put this in and reload. You should change the SRC or this source folder to this gift image that I have here. Let me check. Oh, it's merchant, not merchant. So it's merchant.png. This is I think probably is the way that we're linking this. And that should change actually. Then why is it not? The ID of image. I don't know, and I have to probably figure this out. This should actually change. So let's say we have a gifts.png and here's a PNG file. So let's say we have a gift.png file now, and I have in my DOM here, I'm trying to change the SRC attribute of that ID of image to merchants.png. So what this should do should actually change what this is here. But I don't know why it's not doing that. It should change the value of what this image is from gift to merchant. So let me see what's going on here. I don't know why it's not changing. So hopefully, like by tomorrow, I would actually get my stuff together. I should just probably learn some more. Yeah, sorry, what? Somebody was saying something.
Image source was not.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was saying that maybe your image source is
My image source, let me change this to merchant and see actually. Yeah, it changed to merchant. You have it here. And you actually do the same for this too, but I don't know why it's not seeing it, and that's very, very funny. It's not seeing it. It should. It should.
to try get
Okay.
elements.
I think it works now. It works now. I think this has to do with the body and the tag. Let me do this again. Okay, it works now. I think the issue was that it was where this script tag is positioned. So let's go here and see. There was this thing that I was talking about. Okay, so you have two ways of writing JavaScript, right? You can put it in the head tag and you can put it in the body tag. So in the head tag, it said a JavaScript function is placed in the head section of an HTML page. You know when you put a JavaScript file, like the way the HTML actually renders everything from top to bottom, right? It reads everything that's in this document, then HTML, then head, then script, right? So that was one of the things that was affecting here. I think before it was outside of our body tag, right? So if you put it in the head tag, for example, if this script was in the head tag, we're just going to see it. We're not really even going to see. We're not going to see this change that we have here. Let me take this back up. If I put it in our head tag like this, okay, you can see that it is not rendering that dom.js. And why is that? It's because after it goes, let's say it reads HTML, then head, then meta, then link, then goes to script, and it changes it to this, right? It go ahead to continue. Okay, it's the body, then we have the H1 calculation, then the image, which is now changing to gift.png now. Okay, Ezra, please speak.
Right. But I have seen some other places where it says that this tag should be at the bottom of the body because, uh, for example, if the JavaScript function is calling something like a prompt or an alert, which page for that prompt to show first before the page or that function to show after the page runs. I think
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and that's what I'm trying to explain. Yes, it's the reason why like the positioning of your script tag is very important. Now you know the way I think it was my mistake for mentioning that at first. That's what I was supposed to mention first. So the way what's it called, a web page is rendered is it renders everything from top to bottom, right? So let's say we have this old HTML templates that we have here, and we have this doc type, the HTML. What it reads the doc type first, then HTML, then the head. And if this is in the head, right, that means everything that we need to run, that everything that's in our .js file is going to run at the beginning before it actually moves to what is in this body. Now, in our case, if we put it in the head tag here, right, if it's in the head tag, we are changing. We have this to be the DOM here. We're having it to be, and the image we want it to get is this merchants.png, right? So it will get merchants.png, and that's what is going to be here. But this will go ahead and go to the body, and it will start evaluating the body too. So it goes to the div, the next div, the H1, then this image. And on this image now we are setting it to gift.png. So since it reads from top to bottom, it will overwrite what we have in this script tag, which was merchants.jpg, right? So it will overwrite it and it will change it to this gift.png. That's why we will not see it. So the most advisable way of writing a JavaScript code is putting it at the bottom, like before the end of your body tag, before you close it, you put it there. And what the advantage of that is, it allows you want interactivity to be to be put whenever something happens. You don't want that to happen at the beginning of your file. Unless you want a prompt, like Ezra said, you wanted a prompt. And the prompt is when you have probably clicked on a button or something. If you put it at the head tag like this, it is going to run that first, and you don't want that. You always want to put it just below, just before you close your body tag. That's where you're going to be putting your script file. So that everything that you need to run, it should be running that after it evaluates the whole page. Now, if you move this now, and move it to this body here, the top of this body now, it will first evaluate this script tag, right, before it moves to this gift.png. So even if you check now, you see there is still this gift.png that we have. But now if I move it all the way down, just before this body tag closes, we see that it changes to the merchant dot. It changes to this merchant.jpg .jpeg file. Now let me comment that so that you guys can see. So if I comment this out now, right? So we see that we have gifts, and I comment it in back. So we have merchants now. So it will render everything from top to bottom. So you always want to put your script file just before you close your body tag. So that's where it is like the best position to put your script tag. Hopefully we all got that. Nobody's answering.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay. So let's learn a few more JavaScript concepts so that by tomorrow we actually start fully on the DOM elements that I want us to do. Let's see, what do we have here? Talk about arrays. Let me develop this. I want to see what we have. There's this text that is sent to the group. Let me see. Okay. See where we could move to. Possible. So we mentioned functions, we mentioned objects, we mentioned methods. What else have we done? So we should probably write more logic fully. But before we do that, I want to mention some things. After this class, I did not structure it before I came. That's really bad. It's affecting me. Okay, sorry, please let me just give us a quiz so that we can do to hold us before we do this and before we move on to another concept. Let me drop a quiz. So I'll be able to get like gather what I have to do. Because now we have to leave by 11:30 because of the afternoon section. So let me drop a short quiz. So it's going to kind of like encompass all that we've been doing since the beginning of the course, since last week actually. So I'm dropping it on the group now.
Oh yeah. Tell me why. Tell me why. I didn't know now. I was.
One H is 16 plus 12H times 4. Okay. So I'm dropping the quiz on the group now. Can you hear me? I dropped the quiz on the group now. So just all kindly attempt it. I'm going to be dropping another one now. So it's pretty simple. If you get the concept, if you don't understand the question, kindly ask so that I can address that. So the test data must not be okay. Let me just So second question. So I'll be giving us 20 minutes to do the questions. So one question is going to be a validation question because validation is actually very important in as we move on. Let's say you have a form now that you want to check if the password that the person puts in is equals to the next password. You know, you have this password field and the confirm password field. You want to be able to check if their values are the same. We use validations in that sense. So I'm going to be running the next question around validation. So validation. Okay, so let's start. Okay. If the values in So I sent the second question too.
So I'm not seeing it on the group chat. So where did you send it?
WhatsApp group.
It's
Oh,
not there.
oh my God. I was sending it to the facilitators group. My bad. Oh God. This is serious. I sent it now. Let me just forward it so you guys can see it. It's not supposed to be here. Imagine. So I dated the first one. So the second one is for you guys actually. So those are the questions. So if you don't understand, ask questions. So, is there anybody with any question as regards the class quiz? If you have questions, but I guess it is clear, sha. Both questions. You have 17 minutes more or less. Oh, what am I even saying? 15. So, is there anybody with any difficulties as regards the question? So I can explain that. So we have just a few moments. So by this thing 11:15, you guys should stop so we can make corrections. Have to review your codes and see if it's working sharp and if there are corrections to be made. So yeah, we were able to do the class quiz. Hello.
That's the first one that I was able to do. The second one is hello, you are muted though. If you are talking, Mr. Bilal, you are muted.
Oh, I said I just made you course now so you can share your screen.
Oh, okay. was how I could interpret the first question.
Okay, let me read
And
the
this is
first
what
question again.
is okay.
Yeah, let me see what it's printing out and see.
Okay. This is the answer.
Okay, let me see your code again. It said the age is let it out to 0. Okay, it is all for each age. Then if it is greater than or equal to 15 and less than 30, total over ages dot length. Okay, I think this is going to be short somehow. And you know the reason why would be, you know, ages dot length, it will start counting from 0, right? So if it comes from
Yes.
0, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will probably stop at around 9, and you want to divide by 10. Do you get? So what you would do is you just put ages dot length in bracket and add 1.
Okay. +1.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's increased the okay.
Okay.
So the
Was there anybody else
second
that?
one,
Yeah, I get if you're not
I'm
able to
trying to
attempt now.
digest.
Sorry, what?
I was trying to digest the question because it says check in the values of an array. A number
Mm-hmm.
is greater than the array's dot.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, let me just
So
put it in correction because I don't even understand the question.
okay, and that's why I was asking. Like, if you don't understand the question, you can ask me. But anyways, I would.
Okay.
And was there anybody else that was able
Yeah.
to attempt the quiz? Elise, Peace, anybody? Don't care. Yes, somebody's answering. Okay. Mm. So let me share my screen so you guys can see. Total divided by ages. That's the length plus one. Okay. See our browser. Not the number. Okay. Okay, so we have separate values. So we have let's see. For the first one we have 18, then 3, then 37, then 6.1, 67, then 53. And this last one we have let's see. We have 8.8334. Let's see why that is so. have 15, and we have 19. Okay. So what we are doing here, if you check here, I just used like 3 annoying data. We have like 5 data now. And the question says that we should create a function that checks if the age is less than 15 and it is greater than 30. We should not include that in our averages that we are calculating, right? So what we did here is I just wrote the normal for each statement, right? We are getting the age from there, and we are now checking that value. So we are saying if age is greater than 15, and also if age is less than 30. You remember from our last class that if you use this kind of operator, it's kind of calculates this condition, and it will only return if both conditions are true. So if age is greater than 15 and is also less than 30, then this would be true. So what we did here was we are console.logging the total, and we set a variable called total and initialize it to be 0. So what we set is to add whatever, whenever this runs and we get an age, we should add that to the total. Now you see that for the first one we have 0 2 times because 10 and 50, 10 is greater than 10 is less than 15, right? And 50 is greater than 30. So they both do not satisfy this condition. That's why we have 0 twice. Then we have this 18. So 0 plus 18 at this point to give us 18. Then let's consider this one out. So we have 18. Then it goes on to evaluate the next value, which is 19. So it adds 19 to what total is now. Total is now 18. So 18 plus 19 will get 37. And for the last one, we will get 16 plus 37, which is 53. Now, what we want to do is to calculate the average. We want to calculate the average of each value, right? We want to calculate the total. Okay, fine. So we want to be able to calculate the total, like the average total of all of these values. So, and the average total is actually we divide the averages that we got. We divide it by the length of this array, and the length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it will be 4 since its index will start from 0. So that's why we're adding this one so that we get an accurate value. You see that if you just use ages.length, it's going to be a different value because it is going to be divided by 4. But we want to divide it by 5. That's why we are adding this plus 1. Since the number of values that is inside the array is 5, so that's why this plus 1 is at the end. So we have this 8.8334 as the final answer for that total object and for that total average that we're trying to calculate. Now for the second one, did we get that? Do you understand? And there's a way that I want us to do this thing. We're going to be using the reduce method tomorrow because we have to go for the general session now. So we'll be looking at the reduce method. And the reduce method generally what it is just a way of adding all the values that is inside an array together at a single go. Instead of writing this kind of thing, you can add everything that is inside an array together. So that's what the reduce method does. So for the second question, it says checking the values in an array if it is greater than the array's length. So let's say we have all these values. Let's use this ages value now. Let's just change. Let's call it function. Call this one probably value checker or something. So in the value checker, I want to check if the array that we are passing in. So let's say the array that we are passing in. We want to check if the value inside is greater than the array's dot length. Okay. So what we will do is if let's first we write a for each statement for the array. So dot for each, right? And write the callback function. We will check if the array that we're getting. Let's just move this A and A. If A is greater than array dot length, then we create a new array, right? Let's call this new array to be an empty array, right? We want to push the value of A to that array, so we just do new dot push A. Now what we are doing is we are checking, the question says you should check if the value that we are getting from an array of numbers, if it is greater than the length of the array, then we are pushing that value inside of length, right? And we are pushing that value inside of this new array. And if it is not, okay, so write an else if also. So if A is less than arrays, the array dot length, let's say let total be equals 0, then console the log total plus A plus equals A. Now what this is doing is, we said we are creating an array and a function, right? What the function will do is it will check if the value that is inside of an array is greater than the array's length. So let's say the array, let's use this function for example. Now this is 5 arrays, like this is 5 values in this array. Now if the value, like each value that is inside is greater than 5 or 4 in this case, since it will start from 0. So if the value is greater than 4, we want to push that value into a new array, which is this one that I defined up top. And if it is less than the array's length, we want to just add all of those values that are less than the array's length. So let me make this a greater array 5, 6, 8.
No, Abdullah.
Yeah, I can
I
hear you.
sent you directly.
Oh, okay. On WhatsApp or on here?
Sorry?
Okay, I can see it now. I can see it.
Okay.
Oh, so guys, we have to round up, but let me just quickly explain this part. It's not going to take long. Or should we just do it in tomorrow's class so that you guys can go for the software session, please? For the soft skill session, rather. I guess I will send the code to the group and I'll drop a voice note with it. So if that is fine, I'll be doing that. So you guys can
forget, just finished it.
Okay,
You're almost done
Michael,
now, so that it won't be like yesterday's movie.
Yeah, okay. So Michael, just give me like 2 minutes so I can round off. Okay, so what this will do is we'll take in an array, right? And for each value that is inside the array, we are passing in this A, which is just the values that are inside the array. So the statement here is if A, like if the array, like if the values that we are getting is greater than the array's dot length, is greater than the array's length, then we are pushing that value to an array that we've set, like this new array. Now, else if the A, like this value, like for example, this for now is less than the array's length, then we are going to be adding all of those values that are less than the array's length together. So let me just show that in action and let's see value checker. We'll pass in ages. So let me just log this out. So console log total and also console log the new array. Okay. Set total is not defined. Oh, I cannot do this here. Okay, so now you can see now that we are checking this whole array, right? So the first block says if A is greater than the array's length. So we check for a number that is greater than the array's length. The array's length will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 values in this array, right? If the value in the array is greater than the array's length, we want to push that value to this new array. So the number of values that is greater than 8 is you have 10, you have 50, you have 18, you have 19, and you have 16. So we should be seeing that in the array. So we have 10, 50, 18, 19, and 16. So these are the values that were pushed to the array because they were greater than the array's length. Then if a is less than the array's length, what you want to do is you want to add them all together. So let's check the number that is less than the array's length. So 4 is less than the array's length, 5 is also less than the array's length, 6 is less than the array's length. So 4 and 5 and 6 should be added together. So we should have 15. Well, that's not the case. Let's see what's going on. Line 23. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you should add this 1, 2, 3 together. You should add 4, 5, and 6 together, and that should give us 15. Oh, it's returning 8, and I want to know the reason why that is so. So we have 4. So I consider logging 4 here. Then 4 plus 5, this should be 9. Do we have the total before? We don't. Okay, you should be adding this together, but let's just do this. Like, I would probably have to rush. We have to debug this, but I don't know why. So you guys, you can join the software skill sessions, please now. So I will send the code to the group and I will send the VM immediately after so that you guys can see it. I promise it won't be like yesterday. So have a good day, guys. So tomorrow we'll like start more on the DOM section. So we'll be able to make projects before the end of the course. Thank you guys for being in the call today and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.